if something goes sideways, and you're able to be the one anchor
Mhm.
that's there to, to save it and make sure that, hey, you can right that ship in
Mhm.
such a short amount of time. I mean, you've proven your value.
Yeah, so, like, so far so with that being said, with all this, now the goal is to have 15 by the end of the year.
Wow.
So, that's kinda why I mentioned to you, like, yes, you can do a lot with the phone, but in this day and age, to really, like, you just do it if you do it the right way,
Right, right,
you
right.
you will have a lot better
Well, listen,
progress.
I mean, a phone isn't going to substitute this,
Right, no, of
right?
course,
You know
but
what I mean?
they get like we know, equipment doesn't make a good script.
Right,
It's
of
always
course.
about a good story,
Yeah,
so
if again, and I love that you said that because it's so true. You can have the best script in the world, but if you don't have the right equipment to shoot it or the
mhm.
best audio for people to hear it, it's going to be garbage. And
Yeah,
vice versa. You could
exactly.
take something that on paper may not be great,
Mhm,
but if it looks so good and it sounds so good,
mhm.
people are going to be drawn into it because cinematically it's going to look amazing.
Yeah.
And for me, the reason why my experience is so broad with so much stuff.
Yeah,
I
tell me a
mean,
little bit about, like, what you did
from
before Hollywood.
well, I grew up in Connecticut,
Okay.
middle class, typical middle
Mhm,
class family. And, I was into basketball, I was into sports, had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, ended up wanting to be a cop.
mm.
Wanted, first of all, I wanted to be a fighter pilot because I saw Top Gun back in the day. And then, I outgrew being
Mhm.
able to fit into the cockpit of
Everybody
a,
thinks being tall is such a, like, right, has its
well, it's
downfalls.
funny because when I was younger, I
Mhm,
hated being the big guy.
mhm,
I hated being tall. I hated having the deep voice
mhm,
because it was always like, "Who did that? Oh, there he is, right there."
mhm.
It was always me.
Right.
I was very easy to pick out, so I hated it.
Mhm,
Now I love it because it's been an asset in so many ways. In the sense of growing up in Connecticut, I grew up. I played sports. I had fun. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. Then I figured out I wanted to be a cop. Ended up not becoming a cop,
mhm,
went in a completely different direction, ended up doing, staffing and human resources and putting people to work. Had a staffing company, moved to Miami, did that. And all this time I was completely unhealthy, which is a very important aspect of my entire story.
mhm.
I was unhealthy. I was 300. I ended up at my worst getting up to like 330 pounds. Um, Met my wife in Miami when I was far less than 330 pounds. Going to the beach every day. I was a bouncer in some of the clubs. I was living the life down there.
Mhm,
But uh, after getting comfortable, my wife is Peruvian, so great
mhm,
food, of course, and everything else. And got so comfortable for so many years that uh just kind of didn't
mhm.
care about myself. I was working, was making money, got into this whole drone thing,
I
which
saw is that what your page
yeah,
okay,
so
dope.
Cinedrones, I got into drones when I was in Florida.
Mhm,
And after I had moved from Connecticut down to Florida, this was back in 2013.
mhm,
In 2003, coincidentally, when my oldest daughter was born, I started playing with remote controlled helicopters.
mm.
Something I wanted to
Okay.
do since I was a little kid. Super cool.
Yeah, the gas ones, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Super hard to fly.
Uh-huh.
It's really and it turns out I did it and I got really good at it. I competed. I went to events all over the country. I had sponsors. It was great. And then along came drones.
Mm,
Wanted nothing to do with them.
mm,
Nothing. I had ended up after working for the staffing company, uh 2009 happened, which was, a big recession. Was terrible for everybody. Ended up losing the staffing company and went to work doing the hobby I had started in 2003, selling remote controlled helicopters.
mm,
It was great. I had fun, traveled all over the country, met people everywhere,
mm,
got free stuff. It's great. Uh, but at some point, drones came into the whole fold of things. And someone asked me, like, hey, can you throw a camera on one of those helicopters? I was like, oh, sure.
mhm,
Okay. I went, I did it. It was for a pilot for MTV called Wake Brothers. Uh, I worked for about 45 minutes.
mm.
They handed me a check for like 1,500 bucks.
Sheesh.
And I'm like, holy shit. A new a new something is
New
born.
challenge unlocked.
Yeah, and I'm like, for me in Orlando, I'm looking around and I'm like, man, these guys have like walkie-talkies and
Mhm.
cameras. I'm like, this is Hollywood, baby. So I was super impressed. I'm like, you in Hollywood? Yeah. Oh my God.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I made a lot of money in a very short amount of time. And I was like, man, maybe this is something. Whatever. Right.
Mhm.
Once in a lifetime thing. Fast forward about 6 months or so, I went to go work for a company. The RC helicopter company ended up going out of business. It
Mhm.
was the last American made RC helicopter. China had taken over. Just couldn't do it anymore. The
Right.
company just couldn't afford it. So went to work for a company that at the time had just started supplying us uh, equipment, parts, pieces for what we now know as drones. They were called multi-rotors back then.
Mhm.
So, they were relatively small and compact. The company I went to go work for was making these big drones that carry big cameras, red cameras for cinema,
Mhm.
right? I didn't know anything about it. But they hired me. I went to work. I was their sales manager. And lo and behold, it's like, wow, people kind of want these things. I got on the phone. I started calling people. People would call us because at the time there was only one other manufacturer making these things. And people just wanted what we had.
Mhm.
So making money hand over fist selling these things. Commission was fantastic.
Mhm.
Did that. That turned into me going on some shoots. First shoot I ever did was for Under Armour in
Oh,
Baltimore on the
sick.
roof of the place with
Okay.
Jeremy Piven from Entourage.
Okay.
So it was like, whoa, what is happening
Mhm.
here? And that kind of got my wheels in motion of like, man, do I want to make these things? Do I want to fly these things? What do I want to do?
Mhm.
Continued to make them. The company I was working for went another direction. They wanted to make drones for law enforcement.
Mhm.
I wanted to stick with cinema
Mhm.
because for me, you know, glitz and glamour, I want to be in cinema.
Mhm.
Again, all this, it was in Orlando, Florida. So because of that, I started my company, Cinedrones, only with the intention of making drones and selling them to people that needed them for cinema.
Mhm.
Well, again, I was kind of the only guy in town.
Mhm.
Started getting phone calls. Started getting people, "Hey, can you come out and shoot real estate? Hey, can you come out? I have a MotoGP was something on CBS. It was right when drones were really kind of, no pun intended, taking off.
Mhm.
And so a lot of it was being in the right place at the right time, but a
Mhm.
lot of it was like, because I was on the phone all day,
Yeah.
right? And just trying to start a business, I had no idea how to start in an industry I knew nothing about, and it was a lot of emailing and phone calls and whatever happened happened. So I'm trying to make the drones. I'm starting to sell the drones. I'm starting to do drone work as a pilot, and it just kind of grew from there to the point where I shut down selling and making drones, and I was coming out to LA. I was going all over the country shooting stuff for CBS, and one day I found myself on the roof of the Capitol Records building, myself and another guy. And I can show you the picture. It was when I was 330 pounds. And I called my wife. We were shooting a video for Lady Antebellum at the
Mhm.
time, now Lady A. We were shooting a music video up there. And I called my wife and I was like, hey, we're moving to LA. This is, there's something here. We're moving. My son had just been born. And 36 days later, we had a place in Culver City.
Mhm.
And from there, it was just, hit the ground running. Went knocking on doors. Back then, you could still knock on doors and not
Mhm.
get turned away. You could, it was before texts and emails and all that other crazy stuff was really, a thing.
Mhm.
Walking in and talking to a gatekeeper or a secretary or trying to get something, passing out some cards, pens, whatever it may be. And, again, just a lot of that. And it paid off, ended up growing a business, huge business, the biggest drone company in Hollywood without a doubt at the time. And fast forward here and there and we get to COVID.
Mhm.
And that was a game changer. We were still super busy, but things started to shift. A lot of things started to shift in
Mhm.
Hollywood around that time. And we got through that. It was great. Made it past COVID, went back to work, was making good money. myself and my crew. And then, here we are, the strikes hit.
Mm.
And in between that time, like I mentioned, before we were doing this, a friend of mine, David Boreanaz, from SEAL Team and Bones and all these other great shows, uh, Angel, most people know him from. Uh, he's like, "Hey man, you should act." And I'm like, you know, what does this guy know?
Mhm.
The funny story behind that is I had been dealing with some depression, right? As a guy nowadays, when I was younger in Connecticut, wasn't a big deal, right? Like you have ADHD, you're depressed.
Mhm.
It's like get over it, right?
Mhm.
What's wrong with you? So I just wanted to be happy,
Mhm.
and I ended up telemedicine was huge because we had just come out of the pandemic. So
Mhm.
all this stuff, and when I was a kid, or well, a younger man in my 20s, the only drug I've ever done in my life was ecstasy.
Mhm.
I used to go to New York, used to party all the time.
Mhm.
Only thing I've ever done was ecstasy. But I remember one night in particular, we were at the Palladium in New York, and I'm sure you've seen the glow sticks,
Yeah.
right? People doing the glow
Mhm.
stick there. I couldn't do glow sticks to save my life. I was a raver guy, party guy, dressed up to the nines, whatever.
Mhm.
Aqua di Gio all over the place, little Dolce and Gabbana. But I'd go, and I could never do the glow sticks, man. I
Mhm.
just couldn't get it. I could swing them like this all day long, but I just couldn't do the glow
Yeah,
stick.
yeah, yeah.
And one night, took the ecstasy, it was great. It ended up having ketamine in
Mm.
it. And
Heard that's good for depression.
it, well, who would have known? Back then, I certainly wasn't depressed.
Right.
And I ended up taking it. We were sitting there. It was late at night, still a bunch of people in there. There was a stage right behind me. So I got up. I got up on stage, took all my glow sticks, broke them, started swinging them around. I'm like, all right. And it was like slow motion. It was like Matrix, man.
Mhm.
Swinging these things around. I was like, holy crap. I can do this. Holy shit. So I come back off stage and I turn to myself. Now, mind you, what I'm saying here, I
Mhm.
turned to myself and I was like, you got it?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I jumped back into my body and literally, I mean, I jumped back into my body and ended up getting up on stage again and doing it for real,
Mhm.
like I had just done it because I had. So all the fast forward all these years when I was feeling a little bit depressed
Mhm.
or a lot depressed, I should say. I didn't really have anything to feel depressed about.
Mhm.
Don't really know why or how or whatever it stemmed from, but it just did.
Mhm.
And I started looking for a solution. How do I fix this? Telemedicine. I started thinking like, man, in my life, how did what made me feel that way? And I
Mhm.
said, if I remembered back to ketamine teaching me to be able to do something so trivial and so stupid as glow sticks, right?
Mhm.
And I'm thinking like, okay, maybe it can teach me to be a better human, be a better man, whatever it may be.
Mhm.
I felt happy, right? So I just kind of thought back to those days. I'm like, all right, if it can teach me to do that, it can teach me to be a better person, a better father, whatever it may be.
Mhm.
As always, you think about something, you open up Google or Instagram, and boom, miraculously there it is, right? You don't say a word, but there it was. So I started looking. I was like, oh my god, ketamine's a thing.
Mhm.
Got on the phone, had some telemedicine calls, talked to a couple places. Next thing you know, I have ketamine delivered to my house, oral
Mhm.
ketamine. Started doing it, and goddamn, man, it was the best thing ever. And you'll see where I'm going with this in a second because every time I started doing the ketamine, at some point during this experience, I would see myself in front of a camera,
Mhm.
right? So, and acting is something I did way back when, right? I
Mhm.
was up on stage, hello, Dolly, all this sorts of stuff. Back when it wasn't cool. You couldn't be an athlete and an actor at the same time
Right.
because everyone would make fun of you. They call you every name in the world. You're a fag, you're
2
gay,
different
whatever.
worlds.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, yeah.
completely different time. And so I succumbed to that because back then that's just what you did. You picked what you wanted to do and that was it. And if you wanted to be in theater, well, you were one way. If you wanted to be an athlete, you were another way.
Mhm.
So I stuck with what I was good at, which was basketball. But anyways, uh, I just I started doing the ketamine, and at some point during these great trips, not only did I feel better, but at some point I would see myself in front of a camera.
Mhm.
So several months go by. Again, I'm on set on SEAL Team, and David and I are walking to set one day from his trailer. He's like, man, you should act, and it just stopped me dead.
What were you doing on the SEAL team?
I was doing drones.
Okay.
Yeah, I was doing all the drone stuff, and I had been on that show for so many seasons, and David and I had a good relationship, great working relationship, because he not only is an actor, but he's also a director. So we've worked together on so many different levels, and then again, just kind of formed a friendship besides that.
Mhm.
And so when he said that, it just kind of stopped me dead because it's like, what does this guy know?
Mhm.
Right? Like, how does this guy know
Right.
that this is something I'm thinking of? Is this the universe talking to me? And so I was like, all right, man, let's go. What do I need to do? And he gave me the name of his acting coach. I went to a bunch of acting classes. I said, what's next? What do I do? And just started calling people I know,
Mhm.
working as close to the money as possible. Got my first opportunity on a show called Bosch Legacy,
Mhm.
and I was a door kicker. I was the head SWAT guy, and they gave me a couple lines, and it went great. I loved it. I was super comfortable. I didn't have a butterfly or a fear in the world. I knew exactly what I was doing. My background in drones and cinematography and cameras came, and working with directors in the past came at a huge plus, because I kind of knew where to be,
Mhm.
and so that helped me
Right.
feel very comfortable in dealing with the crew and taking direction. So it was all great. And then that spawned more stuff. So it, just doing the acting stuff, doing the drone stuff, and again, and then like I mentioned earlier, here comes the strike.
Mhm.
Just when things with the acting, excuse me, were going so well, and I was riding such a big wave because I had done show after show after show. I started getting huge auditions, um, for Marvel, for Reacher.
Mm.
Um, as a matter of fact, the new season should be coming out pretty soon of Reacher, and the guy they went with, they wanted someone who was 6'6" or larger. I'm 6'5",
Mm.
but I fit the role pretty much to a T. But the guy they ended up going with was like 7'5".
Right.
Yeah, I think they call him the Dutch Giant or something. And this dude's massive,
Uh-huh.
right? Massive. I mean, I can't compete. The guy's a foot taller than me. He's ripped. He's jacked. Um, But I was getting the auditions. I was getting the opportunities, which some actors don't even get. So I was very
Mhm.
fortunate in that sense. Had some really great feedback, and here we are. So after the strikes hit, it was kind of full stop for everybody in the industry. It hit us particularly hard, as a family. It hit so many hard. And for us, I have 3 kids. My 21-year-old, she's out on her own now in the real world. God bless her. And I have my 9 and 11-year-old, and my wife, of course, of 23 years we've been together.
Congrats.
Thanks. It's a
It's a rough world
it's
out
a
here
it's a
now.
rough world. It's a tall order, man. 23 years, you think back, and it's like, for both of us, we're like, man, 23 years, this is half of our lives. I mean, you've been with the same person, and we have gone through so much shit, good, bad, indifferent, worse, sad, happy, you name it.
Mhm.
Um, over 23 years, and thank God she stayed with me, because she's my North Star. She's my guiding light. And as much as we argue and fight, and all the typical guy girl bullshit, if you go on Instagram, you see all these people joking. It's like, hey, where do you want to go eat? I don't know, where do you want to go eat? It's like,
The
okay, well,
simple
let's go
things.
here. Fuck that, I don't want to go there.
Yep.
And then it turns into a whole thing. It's like you end up eating at like fucking Norms or something.
Yeah.
um but at the end of the day, we've got a great relationship. And getting back to the strike has really put us in a tough position, because or they st- that's that kind of set up where we are now, because the
Mhm.
strike slowed everything down. A month, 3 months is what we thought it was going to be. We haven't been here long enough to
Mhm.
experience the strike that was prior to this. And so going into this, we had no idea what to expect. Thank God, I had some money in crypto. I had some money in savings. We were going to buy a house with it.
Mhm.
I had some investments, and you know, over the course of we're at like 19 months now, the all that everything's gone,
Mm,
right? The investments came out, the crypto, I could have kicked myself. The crypto came out a couple months before, it went up to like $102,000.
mhm,
So, I lost an untold amount of money there. Uh, and then the savings that we had for what we had hoped, I mean, whether a dream home or not, but to buy a home, all that we kind of lived on. And, we didn't know to what extent. So we just kept, paying our rent every month in Huntington Beach. And it was a shit ton of money.
mhm,
And so we depleted a lot of money real fast. And from there, we're kind of like, what do we need to do?
mhm,
And we ended up moving to Vegas back in March of 24, and we were there until November,
mm,
and the money's run out.
mhm,
It's left us high and dry. We don't have really anything left. It's just put us in a tough position. So, it's left us as a family a little bit scattered, a little bit broken. Obviously the love is still there.
mhm,
My wife and I aren't breaking up or anything, at least that I know of. But it's left me living in one place with my son and my daughter living with mom, and we're 5 hours apart. Part of that is due to my son who's on the ski team, so we need to be close to the mountain, obviously. And he's thriving up there in school and on the mountain. My daughter's thriving down here in school, but it's as you can imagine, you want your family to be together. It's as a father, as a husband, as a provider, as a
mhm,
man,
mhm,
you want to keep a roof over their head. You want to make sure that they're taken care of, that they're warm at night. I mean,
mhm,
all the stuff that you kind of take for granted, you start to think on a daily basis, like, hey, do they have enough food? We used to go out and get a $200 meal once or twice a week. Who gave
mhm,
a shit, right? Money's coming in, got nothing to worry about, and I got to go to work tomorrow at 5 a.m. Didn't have to worry about it. Now you look and it's like, shit, can I afford two $5 or $6 value meals at McDonald's? And that's pretty fucking heavy, right? I
yeah,
mean, as a dad, as a man, as a father, it's like, and I say that a lot, but that's pretty heavy shit to
mhm,
think about. It's like, do you want to feed your kids this shit food versus like what they're used to? I mean, it's led to cooking a lot of meals on our own and whatnot, but at the end of the day, I want to be able to provide the quality of life for my kids, for my wife. I want to be able to go out and buy my wife a dozen roses or, whatever it may be, just for shits and giggles, just because I can.
mhm,
Right. And that's that ability right now is gone. Right.
mhm,
And it's been a terrible fucking year. Like, I've gone through everything you can imagine on an emotional roller coaster. I've been, at some of the darkest points a human being can be at
mhm,
on a few occasions. Um, I've been in some really great ways. I was part of a documentary that went to Costa Rica. Again, something that David Boreanaz unknowingly hooked me up with, but he did, and it's because of him that I was able to do that. Spent a week down in Costa Rica with 5 or 6 other individuals from all walks of life, and did ayahuasca. Just had ayahuasca ceremonies 4 or 5 days out of 7,
mhm,
and you learn so much, about plant medicine, and there's so much to know and so much to learn. And when this documentary comes out, which should be first quarter, is what we were told. There's been a couple delays because we still have to do a few follow up interviews and things like that. Um, but I mean, it's a side of me that I didn't know I had. It's you know, uh, it runs the full gamut of emotions. Some nights you come out at 4 o'clock in the morning and you're super happy and you're high on life. And other times you come out and you're like, holy shit. Like I realize, why I am the person I am. I realize where at some point my life might have gone off the rails, whether it's 6 years old or 14 years old. uh, Real quick, I don't want to give too much away of this, but at some point I was able to go back and realize that some of the traumas in my life were caused by things that when I was 6 years old.
oh,
And,
definitely,
and I went back. I was able to go back one night and talk to 6-year-old me,
Mhm.
which was like, whoa. And I mean, it was a conversation exactly like you and I are having right now.
Mhm.
I mean, it was that real. And to be able to kind of break down that dimension or that wall or whatever you want to call it and have that conversation and explain to yourself at that age and listen to yourself at that age crystal clear. I mean,
Mhm.
as lucent and as in person as we are right now, that was the conversation.
Mhm.
And so to be able to do that is, I mean, it's like nothing else,
Right.
right? And so, I had experimented with some psilocybin, again, all just in an attempt to feel good, man. At the end of the day, it's just I want to feel good.
Mhm.
I say this all the time, and I don't want to take anything away from it, but at the end of the day, I just want to be a good human,
Right.
right? And I want to be a good father, and I want to be a good husband. And everyone has issues, and everyone deals with it differently. My thing was is I've identified it,
Mhm.
right? Like I know what it takes to be a good person. I have trouble getting there,
Mhm.
right? And so my fitness journey is epic. I could go on and on for hours about my fitness journey and going from 330 pounds down to 250 pounds and everything that is, entailed with that. Um, but and with plant medicine and so on and so forth. But I think that's one of the reasons why I have such a unique story is because of the fact that I've done so much, right?
Mhm.
I've been the good guy, I've been the bad guy, I've been the, the asshole, I've been the great father, I've been the bad dad, I've been the bad husband, I've been the good husband, I've done it all.
Mhm.
And um, I've seen so much. I work in a very unique industry that has a lot of stigma to it, or, the outside world has never really gotten to see, that fourth wall or how things are. They don't know that it takes hundreds of people to make a movie or a TV show
Mhm.
or whatever. So, whenever I talk about that, people are just kind of like, really? I had no idea. There's people that make the clothes. Yeah, there's
Mhm.
people that make the clothes. There's people that, pull the shirts tight. There's people that, do the makeup. There's people that come out every couple minutes when you're acting and they put chapstick on your lips because, you got to look like you have nice plump lips.
Mhm.
Whatever it may be. But again, it's another just another journey and another thing that I think people truly enjoy hearing about.
Right.
So, there's a lot to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's life. The only real way you learn is from experience.
Yeah.
How would you how would you know you're good or bad if you've never been one or the other?
Yeah, yeah, and I think, I think a lot of people get stuck in that. They don't know if they're good or bad,
Right.
and they just kinda stick with whatever path they're on. I think my at least one thing for me that I feel is good is the fact that I recognized it, right?
Mhm.
Like, I finally recognized, "Hey, listen, I'm just an asshole sometimes,"
Mhm.
right? And I've accepted that.
Right.
But not only have I accepted that, it's like, "Okay, now what do I need to do to fix it?"
Right.
Right?
That's the difference.
That's the difference. I mean, that's without a doubt, that's the difference where, people are just assholes and they either latch onto that and that's what they just pretend they want to be,
Mm.
for forever. That's just what they want to be, or they're good people and they don't need to change a thing and they're happy and everything. But there's people who are right in the middle, and they walk that fine line. And for me, I just felt like I was on the wrong side of that line more often than not.
Mm.
And so because of that, I I just wanted to make a change. Not just for me. I mean, obviously I want to feel better about myself. I want to look better, which is why I work out 5, 6 days a week. But at the end of the day, it's for my kids. It's like my whole fitness journey started so many, what, 5, 6 years ago because I didn't have the energy and the stamina to keep up with my kids. And having 2 little kids when they're,
Mhm.
3 and 4 years old to try and keep up with, as you know, it's not easy, right?
Mhm.
And so if you're this big fat shit who doesn't care about themselves and just sits on a couch every night and stuffs your face with mini donuts and Oreos and ice cream like I did,
Mhm.
right? Like that's what you become, you become the shit that you eat. And I just I had enough of it. I had enough of it. I was listening to Rogan one day and I just said, hey, I'm done with this. They were talking about the keto diet. I was like, fucking hey, that sounds great.
Mhm.
I ate like shit. I was on set. We were doing overnights for a week up at Disney Ranch. It was like 28 degrees every night. And on set, and this is right before the Christmas hiatus, there's pies and cookies and soup and sandwiches and candy bars and more candy and more cookies. And everywhere you look, it's just, you know, there's 4 tables this size just loaded with
Mhm.
the maximum amount of shit that a human being can eat. And I ate everything, right? I tried everything probably 4 times a night. Plus, you have your lunch and your dinner and everything else. And I just got to the point where I was just eating like shit. We got in the car, we were going to Colorado, and my wife and I started listening to Rogan, and started talking about the keto diet. I think we were in just getting into Vegas or something, and I
Mhm.
hadn't eaten, and we listened to it all the way through Utah, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna try the keto diet. Like I haven't eaten, like I'm cool. I've been drinking water all day. I feel like shit because I've been eating for 5 days and not sleeping on these overnights. That was it. She's like, "What's wrong with you?" She's like, "You're gonna do it now during Christmas?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm gonna
Mhm.
do it during Christmas because if I can do it now,
Exactly.
I can do it anytime,
Mhm.
right?" So I did it for probably a year and a half or so, lost 70 pounds. I ended up having to have surgery because no one tells you when you're 40 years old that your skin doesn't snap back,
Mhm.
right? Like you're just left like an Adonis. Like that's not how it works. You lose 70 pounds and your skin stays exactly like it was, but without all the fat. So now you're dripping and drooling fat everywhere, and you arguably look worse than when you had all this weight on you. So I had to have that surgery. I had to have a tummy tuck, all this stuff, and then again looked even worse yet because then you're left swollen, a
Mhm.
muffin top. You look like you got beat up. I mean, I have pictures that I show people all the time, and it's like, what the hell? And, so I went, my testosterone was super low. I might as well have a vagina at that point. My testosterone was so low. It was like 200, 223. And went to the doctor. Doctor's like, hey, take some testosterone. I was like, all right, took testosterone for a couple months. I'm like, I don't feel anything, right? I'm 6'5", 260 pounds right now. I'm taking this. I was 6'5", 250 pounds, and wasn't doing it. I was like, I'm a big dude. I need more. And so I just was like, take a little bit more, take a little bit more, take a little bit more. Until finally I was like, oh man, I feel better. It's like, all right, now I'm gonna go to the gym. Started going to the gym. And I mean, I was in the gym like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I was in the
Yeah, I
gym
see you in the
every
gym a lot.
yeah, I mean, I'm in the gym. It's just what I do. Like
Mhm.
right now, I just told my wife on the way here, I'm like, I need to go to like I gotta go to the gym. I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
Um, and so I try to get a workout in, at least an hour
Mhm.
every day. Generally, it's like 2 hours a day that I'm working out. And now because it's ski season, I'm skiing, so I'm doing cardio for 3, 4 hours a day, and then I'm going and I'm lifting at night. And so for me, it's just I just want to stay healthy,
Mhm.
right? Like I'm 48 now. I want to stay healthy. I want to stay healthy for my kids. I want to stay healthy for my family. And there's so much stuff coming out on a daily basis with so many different doctors and Huberman and this one and that one. And it's like, man, a lot of this stuff is just undeniable.
Mhm.
And so for me, like, unfortunately, I don't have the money I once had, at least yet, to be able to try everything that I want to do. But having at least a baseline of good health and a routine, and I'll tell you what, I mean that routine of going to the gym all the time, if there was anything that truly helped me from going way off the fucking rails, it's having that routine and going to the
Mhm.
gym. You know what I mean? And just lifting heavy shit, throwing heavy shit around, excuse me, doing that on a daily basis as much as possible, going home sore sometimes because you're just pissed off at the world or yourself or whatever. And so now you're lifting, stupidly heavy weight just because you're mad and you want to get it out.
Mhm.
And there's nothing better than that. And so, again, uh, fitness, huge part of everything.
Definitely. Yeah. It's great.
So, yeah, it's like I said, man, I've got, I mean, this is like barely tip of the iceberg stuff, um, but so much, so much experiences and so much stuff, and which is why when I think of when we started talking about the podcast and everything, your thoughts and your ideas and I kind of aligned, and this is the authenticity I was talking about, and
Mhm.
I'm sure exactly what you were talking about. It's no bullshit. It's a conversation, and um, I because I'm so all over the place with so many different things, whether it's business, whether it's Hollywood, whether
Mhm.
it's medicine, whether it's drugs, whether it's fitness. You know what I mean? It's and I guess you don't really know that until you start hearing me talk.
Mhm.
Um, which is why, like, for me, the thought of like something general, where it is just open conversations, where I have my buddy come in who's an actor who's been on a hit TV show for years, and then the TV show suddenly just gets canceled.
Mhm.
To someone like Boreanaz, to come in and talk about working in Hollywood for 30 plus years, right? From a kid to where he is now. Um, I think that, to fitness guys, to guys that work in the industry, one of my best friends and someone who works for me, has worked for me the longest of anybody. His father is uh, I guess an international criminal. Yeah, and
Like, wanted by the
he's not wanted anymore.
okay.
He's not wanted. He was. He was at one point wanted, but there's a lot of stories, and his story. I talked to him. His story is one for the ages,
Mm.
and it's somewhat Epsteinish,
Mm.
but it's something that he's very open about.
Yeah.
And he wasn't a part of it, but he was there. It's his father. His father was a billionaire,
Uh-huh.
was, and now he's rotting away in prison.
Mhm.
And he's done some really horrific shit. Um, again, I feel like there's so many different ways that this whole thing can go, uh, which is why I throw all these ideas at you because obviously you're one of the decision makers, and you don't really get to know until you do this.
Yeah, so, like, for all these like, the hosts that I selected, I pretty much did the same thing,
Oh, really?
I
That's cool.
interviewed them all with, like, a podcast. I'm like, "Look, I'm gonna be honest with you, like, your resume it doesn't hold the answers I'm looking for, like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
need to
yeah.
have a real, like,
I think this is
conversation with
brilliant.
you."
I think this is absolutely
Yeah.
brilliant. This is great.
So I'm like I told him, like, "I need to get to know you in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
How else